Hello, this is Trevor coming to you again with another little vlog about tarot and reading and some of the tools and resources that I work with. I sometimes look at other people's vlogs and I think, why do they have their kitchen in the background? Well, I have a reason for that today, something I'm going to show you in a few moments. This is about working with tarot, and in my previous blog I talked about some of the traditions associated with how, amongst other things, shuffling cards, how people store their cards, and the different things that have some background in that. It's often suggested that you treat your cards reverently. I kind of agree with Lewis Carroll when he wrote Alice in Wonderland, where Alice goes, "They're just a pack of cards," right? But I think treating your cards reverently is a way of kind of creating that proper mindset. And really, I try to treat, having worked previously in a bookstore, I treat all printed material with a degree of respect. But one thing I often suggest, especially when people are beginning to work with tarot, is that you get yourself a deck that is specifically for study purposes. This is a deck that you might be treating a little differently than the deck that you wrap in silk and put under your pillow. And I want to mention, that there are many different approaches and mindsets about tarot. It's a system. To me, it's the same thing as Windows for your computer. You can use it in a lot of different ways. For some people, tarot is for fun. For some people, it is a form of study. For some people, it is an area of really strong transformative inner work. And I kind of approach all of those areas. I kind of work with a lot of those different approaches in terms of it. Just like your computer, you might be using it to play games, you might be using it to write a great piece of literature. So I often suggest, as I mentioned, that when you're working with tarot, I always say make sure you get yourself a Rider-Waite tarot deck, because I feel that it is the deck that more artists have based their interpretation on than any other, and it's a great reference point. So you might have a deck that you again, treat reverently. I do have decks that I particularly store in a wooden box like this, and you keep them wrapped in silk and all of those other wonderful traditional things. But at the same time, it's good to have a deck for study purposes, and I'll show you why. For me, you're developing a relationship with the symbols on the cards. And when you initially start working with tarot, you'll find that there's some of those images that are really powerfully appealing to you. And some will you'll go, I just don't get this card. And I think that sometimes that can have to do with the things that are maybe sitting in your own blind spot, areas of self that we haven't yet explored. So when we're beginning to work with tarot, it's a little like studying a language. I have a really good friend who vacationed away last year after many, many years of hard work. He finally gave himself a vacation and he went away to Puerto Vallarta. And beforehand, he was studying some Spanish. And it was really great for him to make some friends who speak Spanish. And they'd make it a point of hanging out and just speaking Spanish. Well, tarot is a little like that same kind of thing. It's a symbolic language. So you want to develop kind of a fluency with it. And again, there's going to be some of the cards you connect with really strongly. And as you begin doing that, it kind of leads into those other associations. And it's great to study. It's great to work with different artists' interpretations, or different authors' interpretations and readers' interpretations of the cards. But you're going to develop your own fluency. Really, in my opinion, and I might get flack for this, there's no right or wrong. You're not going to get the tarot police knocking on your door and taking your cards away. I began reading in an environment professionally. I was reading in a restaurant, so you learn to have a deck that can sometimes have things spilled on it. It's important to have tools that suit the need and to suit the purpose. So in working with a study deck, I often encourage people to, when you're working with the cards, you might find a card that really just seems to stand out to you as a question mark. And let's just go with what comes off the deck. Okay, we've got the Emperor. And, maybe some of us associate this with authority figures and people who are authoritative, dealing with administrative challenges, and there's kind of a paternal feeling to this card. But let's say you're just not getting a whole lot from it. one of the things I suggest you do is give yourself kind of a card a week. And we're going to take this card because this is our study deck. We don't have to worry too much about what happens to it. We're going to be mindful. And leave that card out. Just like you'd leave out a picture of a loved one, or maybe you'd have a post-it note up reminding you of something. So for the week ahead, we would take, say, this card, the Emperor, and we'd put it somewhere, maybe like by our calendar, right? Okay. Or, you know, just like, remember to pick up milk on the fridge. Put a magnet on it. There you go. And we're going to be watching through the week ahead for where the Emperor is going to be coming up in our lives. Maybe you're watching a movie and you kind of go, hey, that resonates with that. And this helps us to build that fluency in terms of how those things work. Oftentimes when I'm working through a strong process in my life, I will work with a particular card and I'll say, this is my reminder. Maybe we're going through some conflicts with people, and maybe it's a time where, you know I have to pace myself. Then I'll purposefully take a card out of the deck like Temperance, put it somewhere just as my little post-it note, my little reminder to me. And that helps us to build that fluency, that relationship with those things. You know, maybe next time you're watching a really good movie, give yourself a moment, afterwards and say, how would I describe that using tarot? A little like my friend who's learning to speak Spanish more fluently, giving yourself time to use the iconography to express what you're working with and what you're working through. And that builds that fluency. So there's your little suggestion for working with the cards for this week. I'm going to be keeping an eye on the Emperor and seeing how that manifests. And hope you all are having a great autumn. Lots of changes that have been going on around my place of work that I will be posting about on my blog at trevorsense.com. And you can also follow me on Facebook. So we'll look forward to talking to you again soon. I really welcome your feedback. Take care.